Hey everyone, Ryan here. I am a Bible nerd. Welcome back to my podcast series and my video series on my trip to the Holy Land, to Israel and Jerusalem. And we wanted to do part 3 here on two of my real highlighted places that were outside of Jerusalem. And that was a place called Masada and Qumran, where they found the Dead Sea Scrolls. These were some highlights of that trip. But hey, if we're going to go into the desert, first thing we need to do is have the proper headgear. So let us put on our little Indiana Jones archaeology hat here. I thought it turned out really cool. It's got my logo on it. I was able to produce this one right before I left. And I even have it on my website if you're interested in this type of little kind of bucket hat. But I tell you what, having it in the desert was great. Just getting the sun off your shoulders and ears and that kind of thing. So it turned out really pretty cool. So hope you like it. It's an actual Columbia little bucket hat here. But the first stop we made was in a place called Masada. Now, I had never heard of Masada at all until I went to this place. It was really fascinating to see it without knowing much about it, because a lot of the other places I was anticipating, I've been studying on, I really wanted to learn about. So it was really a pleasant surprise to go to this place. And wow, it is unbelievable. So Masada is on top of this really fortified, like naturally fortified plateau with absolute like sheer cliffs on almost every side of this thing. And King Herod had built it as like a winter palace. So it has all this palace stuff facing kind of north that overlook the valley, overlook the Dead Sea, but it is such a remote area. To get any resources there must have been a huge undertaking, let alone building a palace and storehouses and all the stuff that they built up on top of this plateau. Well, during the first Jewish revolt that started in 68 AD, which led to the temple being destroyed in 70 AD by the Romans, this was kind of a last stand of the Jewish revolt at this time. So King Herod was long gone by this point, but the Jewish people still knew of this plateau, kind of this fortified area, because it had huge storehouses. Like they could hold out for over 3 years with the storehouses and the resources they could get up on top of this plateau. And from looking down from the plateau down to the valley, you can still see these little squares of where the Romans had encamped around this entire thing to siege it. And the time that it took to build up this siege ramp to kind of get up to the top of this thing was an unbelievable undertaking for the Roman army, especially again in a place that had very limited resources. So they had to work out all kinds of different ways to reinforce the troops that were just kind of out there trying to wait these rebels out. But the rebels had a lot of resources. They could have stayed up there for a long period of time. So that's when they decided to build up this ramp. So the first stop we're going to make is Masada. Then we'll go to Qumran. So check out some of these videos that I took while we were there exploring this incredible site in the Jewish desert there by the Dead Sea.
Really so the ambassador's wife here recording.
So we've got the trams that go up, or you can take a hike, is what you're saying?
Yes. So on the base of the trail, you can see the trail right there. That's carved out, and it zigzags all the way up to the hill.
Wow.
And it goes all the way up to where the base of that mountain is, where the cars will land and take that journey.
Don't do it in June. If you're going to do that hike, do it January 1.
This was all man. Yes, exactly. And you see, look here, this is one of the...
We're at Masada National Park. Look at the Valley of Dry Bones.
These all original. This is the path we walk. Yes. This it's only a steady 30-minute walk. It's not that far, but it's steep the whole way. So
If you like walking on mountains,
Here's that trail.
Yeah, I can see the trail. It's pretty wicked. Take that, dragon's tail. The dragon tail on steroids going up this.
Looking through snow handrails.
There's a little bit right here. There's a little on the corners here, and there's a little bit, but not the whole way. Just kind of maybe on the turns. Yeah, look at that wind its way around, man. Look at clear around here. I mean, Timpanogos Cave, Dragon's Tail. Got nothing on this. But what a fortification, what an area to be able to, yeah, look at down there. That's the Dead Sea down there. And is that where the Romans were? Is that little encampment down there? So
That's one. That's a smaller one.
okay. To be able to just besiege and wait them out. Yeah. Coming into the dock. Yeah, look at this. That's pretty cool.
Look at how they did the big stuff all around.
So when you come over here, you see the black line.
Yeah, what does that mean?
That's the original portion that they found.
Oh.
Oh, and then the rest has just been kind of added on.
It's recreated,
Yeah.
repurposed.
So yeah, the black line is original, and then
Oh,
okay, that
so
makes
we
sense.
tried to stay as authentic as possible. The commanders, or commandments, commandants,
Commandant.
residents.
Commandants. You were close. You were close.
I was close. Yeah, honey?
C'est facile. On découvre, on achète, c'est nouveau. Pour le coup, et on
Combien on
traverse
peut,
le
moi,
temps.
parce qu'en arrière, il sert à rien.
Oh yeah, you can see the black line there is the original. And so you can see the plaster, and then you can see the artwork and just the painting of it. You can see they just kind of plaster the wall to even it out. And this even has a little view out the. It's pretty cool.
This will be, I'm guessing it's going to be a toilet and bathhouse.
I was thinking maybe they put wood in there and make a fire.
Go fly through. Oh.
They would cook the kitchen areas for
Yeah, they just put it back out on the wall.
Here we're coming up on this really cool little display that they had that had a miniature model of this particular part of Masada. So we're going to walk up these few steps here, nicely shaded area, which was really nice. Had some incredible views overlooking the area. But this just gives you kind of an idea of what we were dealing with here. We've got unbelievable storehouses. All those little square boxes, those little rectangular boxes that you see there were all full of food storage and reserves. There's all kinds of water cisterns that were all over the place. There's just incredible amount of resources it took just to build the things up here and then to fortify it to be a stronghold that could outlast just about any army that was down on the valley floor. And then as we come around the north side of this little model, you can actually see the palace that was created here in these different levels. And you can even see the little stairs that led down to it from the one side. And it's really just incredible what was built on this plateau. And this model gives you an idea how sheer rock faces were down the side of this thing and just the resources it must have taken to build it. It was just such an incredible experience to be up here and see this thing. And the model really helped give you an idea what it might have looked like at the time that King Herod had actually built it. Here's the actual storehouses that were built. You can see how kind of long they were, pretty tall, and just how deep they were. And there's a bunch of them. I mean, there's just kind of rows and rows of these fortified storehouses that were up on top of this reserve. And many people believe that they could last at least 3 years if these things were fully stocked. And this was King Herod's kind of winter palace that he would go when the weather was maybe more temperate at this particular area. But it's just amazing to see these things and the engineering and the work it must have taken to get all of this stuff quarried up here, get it stored full of resources, and just how much work and time and effort it must have taken to build these. We've now made it up to the top here, looking to the north. We're at the top of the palace. Down there, you can see the lower part of the palace, which we're going to tour here in a second. You can also see that little square in the distance. That was one of the Roman encampments. And as we look here to the west, the northwest, you're going to see a much larger square where the main encampment of the Romans was. You can still see the footprint. Those other ones were just reinforcements or kind of keeping an eye on the rebels trying to leave this place from that other side. And as we work our way a little further kind of to the west, and you'll see a siege ramp that they built to try to take this fortified palace over during the first revolt in 68 AD. So again, there's pictures of the palace and just that big desert out there. And then right there, you can see kind of a siege ramp that just led up to that they had to build and kind of protect the troops as they were just building this big mound to try to climb up into Masada. It was just nuts. It was just absolutely nuts to see just the sheer rock faces that they had to deal with. And I'm sure the Romans were looking at this going, how in the world are we going to get in there? And even probably the Jewish people at the time, the revolt was like, come and get us. We got plenty of food here. We'll be fine. But eventually the Romans were able to engineer their way into Masada and eventually take over. And we'll talk about that here as we continue through Masada. They have another model sitting here. So it's another little model of what it looked like. You can even see a little bit of the mosaic floors that were there. There's still the originals there. So just really incredible, just an incredible piece of architecture. And just, again, just in such a crazy place. To have something like this was just absolutely crazy. It was so cool to see.
Look at this.
They were a little bit further apart than me.
Lower terrace.
But I don't know why it would be a synagogue.
And look, this has even got like the plaster, but then it's got the, to make it look like it's a marble column or something like that by just putting the mold. And here we are again.
This isn't a synagogue. This is a lower palace.
Oh, it's not the synagogue. Okay.
Large reception and banquet hall surrounded by a colonnade. The columns, some of which have survived to ceiling height, were coated with stucco. The hall's windows, situated between engaged columns on fresco decorated pedestals, open onto the view. Two gilded capitals were found here, reveal the grandeur of the palace. Reception rooms were built in the eastern part of the terrace, as well as a small Roman-style bathhouse in the basement.
Well, it looks like we can go up in here. That's cool. Some preserved artwork on the walls. Wow. Imagine who was hosted here and who stayed here, all that type of stuff.
So this is talking about, instead of them trying to preserve, you do conservation versus reconstruction. So a lot of this stuff that is original is in the museum, and this stuff is all replicated to show what it looked like back then, because the wind, air, salt air, and sea,
oh yeah, just dust and all that stuff. Yeah, would just strip it right down. That makes sense. Okay, but this gives you an idea of what it looks like.
This rock here kind of looks like a turkey. The one that's
kind of, yeah, the little flat plaster that's still kind of left.
got its little.
Gives a whole new meaning to mud and sheetrock. The amount of plaster that would take. And you can see kind of the columns, the way they were just over the top of the little, like you said, the little
look to them.
Yeah, to add kind of that Hellenistic thing, which caused a lot of issue where they didn't like King Herod all that much because he felt like he was too in line with the Romans. And there's kind of the groups that were Hellenized and ones that were trying to stay more traditional. And then down there's the visitor center again. There's where we came up. It is quite a drop. I don't know if the camera's picking up how much of a drop it really is.
So there was a bath below here.
Yeah, it looks like there's some stairs, and then yeah, there's like a little overhang.
No.
Yeah, it's not the synagogue. Yeah, just more of a place to be able to host dignitaries and whatnots.
Lower terrace.
So here again's the Roman camp out there, and then here's where they made a siege mount. Somebody told us it was like a 3-year kind of siege because of the time it took to kind of build this thing up enough to storm the gates. And then once they stormed in, kind of the leader of this group was up here, and he basically told them, do you want to die or become Roman slaves? And they all chose to kill themselves. So the husbands killed all their wives and kids, and then they killed themselves, and the final man fell on his own sword. So by the time the Romans came in here, they didn't find anybody alive. The only people that were found were a few women and children that were in the cistern that was over here. They found there's only a few survivors. Everybody else died. I mean, I can't imagine being up here on just a fortified stronghold, watching the Romans out there, watching them build this big siege ramp and eventually storm and plunder all the resources in this palace. I mean, the size of this thing is just amazing, and just the elevation of it. I mean, there's only one place to really get in this thing. I mean, it's on such a steep, rocky plateau, and even this is incredible to storm this thing.
Well, there you have it, Masada. What an incredible experience. What a great highlight of the trip. A moment that was great for me because I didn't really know much about it. So when I got home, I researched a little bit further to make sure I had my dates right and some of the historic events that happened up there. So King Herod had built this, or started to build this, about 37 BC to about 4 BC. And you can see the time it would have taken to just get resources there and supplies and all those things. And then during the first Jewish revolt that happened around 66 AD to about 73 to 74 AD, depending on what you look at. Different historians have different dates for some of this stuff. But Josephus actually mentions this particular siege and mentions a group known as the Zealots. One of the leaders of the Zealots is the one that was part of that first Jewish revolt. And this was like their last stronghold where everybody was able to kind of save or get there. While the Romans knew about the area, they started creating these little encampments and eventually decided, okay, it's time to go in there. And there's different accounts of how long it took them to get into Masada, but there's definitely a process. And the sad thing about it is the leaders of the Zealots there basically said, hey, we're either going to be slaves to the Romans or should we die? And by the time the Romans got in there, and even Josephus records this, they found just a mass suicide. Up to as many as 1,000 people had committed suicide up there. They did find a few people that were just trying to hide and maybe wait out and hope the Romans didn't find them. But unfortunately, it's one of those tragic stories of the end of that particular revolt. But Masada really had a special part in the hearts of the Jewish people that we talked to, as just a symbol of waiting things out and trying to go against the suppressive army of the Romans, and that was just their last stand and everything that happened there. So really was a special place. I hope you have a chance to go there. Definitely add it to your list if you're going to be in the Jerusalem, Israel area, if you can make it down there. But found it to be really, really fascinating area. Next, we're going to go to Qumran. This was one of the hot button, one of the bucket list places I wanted to go because I love studying about the Dead Sea Scrolls. So going to the place where they found it, the little museum that was there, just all the history is absolutely incredible. So the next part of this video, we're going to go through a few of the things we're able to discover and video while we're at this incredible place known as Qumran, where they found the Dead Sea Scrolls. Hope you enjoy. Hey everyone, Bible Nerd here. I am at the site of Qumran where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. And this is an incredible discovery because it pushes back the date of some of the earliest copies of the earliest manuscripts that we have, including the most famous one known as the Great Isaiah Scroll. So up until this discovery, they didn't actually have a complete copy of the book of Isaiah that wasn't way, way earlier. That was a collection of other scrolls, but to actually find an actual complete copy of the book of Isaiah was absolutely amazing. And this area was discovered in around 1946, but wasn't really looked at or didn't know really what they had until they really started researching some of the scrolls. So we are actually here in the area of the Dead Sea, where they actually have this little center here and all kinds of information. So we're going to walk through it and take a look at it. But it's really truly one of the great discoveries of Bible nerds, being able to push back the dates of some of the earliest manuscripts that we now have. And there's the Dead Sea there in the background. So this is going to be pretty cool. I was really excited to see a couple sites, and this was one of them, because I found that Bible reliability and knowing that the translation, like this time capsule of being able to see how accurate we had those translations and the earliest copies, it's just remarkable how accurate the versions that we have from these ones that were in a time capsule for almost 2,000 years. So come with me as we go into this little area here to check out the Qumran and the Dead Sea Scrolls. Let's nerd out together. In Qumran, where they had discovered these incredible scrolls and fragments of scrolls. Last I heard, there's about 970 fragments, including the one that's one of the most incredible finds for Hebrew Bible reliability is the Great Isaiah Scroll. So that was found, I think it was 1946 or 1947. And the story of it is just fascinating. So when they had discovered it, a kid was like going out with his goats and threw a rock into a cave and heard something that sounded like a pot breaking. And so they climbed up there and found it. And then they took it to like an antiquity dealer and didn't know exactly what they had. And he ended up selling a bunch of the fragments that he had. But he kept the Great Isaiah Scroll because he got some money for the other fragments. He didn't get that much money for it. And then they discovered what it was. So then he goes to New York. He puts an ad in the paper. I think it was the New York Times or Wall Street Journal, something like that. But he put an ad in the newspaper that says he has a complete copy of Isaiah. And he asked for like $250,000 for it. And it just so happens that a high-ranking person from Israel hears about it, goes, checks it out, and buys it on the spot and gets it back here to Israel. But the Great Isaiah Scroll, it's just so incredible for the reliability of the Bible. This time capsule where you have the Great Isaiah Scroll sitting in the cave all the way until the 1900s.
And there you have it, my wonderful trip to Masada and to Qumran. I learned so much while I was there. Here on the screen, I've got a wonderful infographic that is provided by wesleyhuff.com. He's got a bunch on there that are really, really cool. And Wesley Huff is known as an apologist. He's been on a few podcasts recently and just really, really a great follow. So if you go to his Facebook page, a couple of his other things, I believe he works for Apologetics Canada, and they have a really great series on the reliability of the Bible. But this infographic was provided off his website, wesleyhuff.com, has some really cool information about the Dead Sea Scrolls that just is really fascinating to me as well. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope you enjoyed this video. You can look at my podcast at Bible Nerd. You can also go to the YouTube channel under the same name, Bible Nerd, and nerd is with a 3 instead of an E in the nerd. So it's Bible spelled normal, N the number 3 RD. I know it can be a little bit tricky. It's been tough to optimize that name, but I just found there's some hidden things between that 3 that's kind of built into nerd that I thought was really fun. So check out BibleNerd.com. Let me know what I did right, what I did wrong. Just really enjoyed nerding out on this Bible stuff. Love going to the Holy Land. Part 4 I'll be working on next. That'll be more into the actual city of Jerusalem. So stay tuned for that. Please like, subscribe, comment, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks, everyone.